Alright y'all, so by now I know everyone knows that cartel boss El Mencho has been captured in Mexico, and along with his 2 other bodyguards, after being injured in a shootout with Mexico's military, would pass away on the way to be treated for his wounds, according to Mexico's news, coincidentally. Now there's been a lot of speculation going on about who did what and how they went about finding this cartel boss after it's been years that they couldn't find him. So much so that a $10 million reward was put out for his capture, and when that didn't work, they upped it to $15 million. Do you know how much of a threat you have to be to have $1 million as your reward? So imagine 15 of them. And actually the reward for his arrest has superseded any other cartel boss there is so far, including El Chapo and Pablo Escobar. Now we already did a video covering this when it first happened, but as I always tell y'all, it's a difference when you're reacting to it. And with that being said, we're going to focus more on what's really going on when it comes to the capture of Mencho and all the quote-unquote conspiracy theories around it. Because there's a lot of rumors going around that there's a bigger reason that El Mencho was sought after above everything else. And the lengths that Mexico went to capture him, so they say, may have been illegal in a sense, as well as bending a few of the rules. Many believe that the Mexican president had been complying with Trump privately, but telling the world a different story publicly. Whereas it's rumored that although Mexican military takes the credit for capturing El Mencho, it's a coincidence that Navy SEALs landed in Mexico on the 15th of February, and 7 days later on the 22nd, El Mencho was captured and unalived in the process. Maybe it's a coincidence, who knows? But it's being said that all the US did was offer intelligence, and that was it. Right. Now there's others that believe that El Mencho was bigger than a cartel boss. He was a man that held cartel secrets, one which may be that allegedly our own government may be behind the drugs moving in and out of Mexico into the United States. One social media user would highlight what the senator of Mexico had to say about this capture and the unaliving of Mencho, and she would say, quote, Senator Lily Tellez sharply criticized the military operation that resulted in the death of Nemesio Asegra Cervantes alias El Mencho, leader of the CJNG. She claimed the government chose to unalive him to preserve the alleged narco pact and protect the narco state, effectively silencing him. The PAN senator argued that Mexico's armed forces are highly capable and could have carried out a precise surgical capture to take him alive. Instead, she said authorities opted for lethal force to prevent him from revealing compromising information, particularly alleged ties to Morena politicians such as Senators Alejandro Esquer and Adán Augusto López. According to Tellez, El Mencho would have been far more valuable alive in testifying in the US court about these supposed narco-political connections rather than being eliminated under what she described as pressure from the United States that forced President Sheinbaum's administration to act. Now in a nutshell, she believes that they'd rather him deceased than alive, so he won't be able to speak on secrets of drug trafficking, as many believe the CIA are in on such things coming in and out of countries into the US, but turning a blind eye to it because they profit off it. Now whether you believe that or not is totally up to you. But on another note, we also found out that Mexico silently handed over almost 40 narco figures who were big shots in the cartel world to the US as a way to show that they are putting a strong hold on the cartel in Mexico. So once again, what's a coincidence that all of this seems to happen so fast after these guys have been operating in Mexico for so long loudly? Not to mention, Mexico isn't the only country that has had a strong hold on the drug market when it comes to drugs being pushed in and out of their country into the US. You have Colombia, you have Venezuela, and you have other countries that have been accused. So why are they going so hard on Mexico? So we're going to get into it. Shout out to the Family TV. We'll leave a link to the original video in the comments, but in the meantime, make sure you hit that thumbs up button so we can get this video into the algorithm. And if you're not subscribed to the platform already, make sure you do so now. Let's get into it.
Nobody wins when the family feels.
About 97% of the drugs coming in by water, and we are going to start now hitting land with regard to the cartels. The cartels are running Mexico. It's very, very sad to watch and see what's happened to that country, but the cartels are running and they're killing 250, 300,000 people in our country every single year.
You have to do something with Mexico. Mexico has to get their act together because they're pouring through Mexico and we're going to have to do something. We'd love Mexico to do it. They're capable of doing it, but unfortunately the cartels are very strong in Mexico.
See, but that's the thing. Like he said, they're capable of doing it. If you read the undertone in that, he's basically saying they can do more than what they're doing. However, like a lot of people have speculated, them too are corrupted, allegedly, when it comes to dealing with the cartels. It's not like the cartels are hiding. It's not like they're impossible to catch. But the thing is, to play devil's advocate, the president is saying if we do anything to them like we have in the past, they're going to basically do things to innocent civilians that we don't want to happen because the violence go up every time we do something to them. So, of course, the U.S. is probably saying, well, we don't care because Mexico isn't our country. So it is kind of foul, but who knows?
Getting a closer look at where a notorious drug cartel leader was killed in Mexico as a wave of cartel violence continues to erupt in popular tourist areas. Take a look at this. You can see the compound where the drug kingpin known as El Mencho was taken out by Mexican special forces on Sunday.
Look at this. Now you got to also think, right? These soldiers, when it comes to the Mexican military, they got families as well. And to think that you got to go up against somebody like this, right? They basically are the Mexico military, just without the proper labeling. They their own military. So you got to think and almost understand that when you do go up against these guys, you got to come correct because they are. And there's a big chance that you may not go home to see your family again.
I am a little bit scared. Hey y'all, it's Ayana Fix My Credit. I am safe, but they are not letting us outside at all whatsoever. I am a little bit scared, very scared, because all you see in Mexico is people like literally driving around with AK-47s, trucks and shit's blowing up, shit's on fire. But as you see, I am safe, okay? We cannot fly out the airport whatsoever because they literally shut down the whole entire airport. So hopefully I'm praying that we can leave tomorrow because, yeah, this Mexico City stuff is starting to become very, 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 very scary. And my heart is not stop racing either, but I'm going to try to relax and enjoy this pool and this city view in Mexico because, yeah, I'm praying for people, man. This shit is very, very scary.
Burning. Now, could you imagine, right? You go to another country for vacation and then they basically raging war out there and you're caught in the crossfire and you were just there to try to get some type of happiness, some type of free mind, right? And then you stumble into something like this, whereas you may not even be able to go home to your own country. That gotta be a crazy feeling.
Buses, highways locked down. Cities across Mexico looking like a war zone. And one of the most feared cartel bosses in modern history is dead. And the world is asking one question. Was this justice or pressure from across the border? After months of political tension, extraditions, and a $15 million bounty hanging over his head, El Mencho, the face of Jalisco New Generation Cartel, was finally tracked down. Mexican officials now say a woman close to him became the catalyst that helped lead investigators to his location. But as the smoke filled the streets and cartel retaliation spread it like wildfire, President Trump kept quiet. But it was 4 words he said before all this. They got U.S. citizens raising eyebrows, especially the ones that's unfortunately stuck over there at the moment. Quote, Mexico must step up.
By the way, you have to do something with Mexico. Mexico has to get their act together because they're pouring through Mexico and we're going to have to do something. We'd love Mexico to do it. They're capable of doing it, but unfortunately the cartels are very strong in Mexico.
So what makes them, right, any more better when they go into somebody else's land, and as much as they say that they haven't because, you know, they don't want to make it seem like they're bending the rules, but that's exactly what they're doing. But what about other countries, right? Like I said before, Colombia, Venezuela, there's a whole bunch of other countries, but the reason why I named those, because those are like the other hubs where they have cartels as well that we haven't seen them interfering with them there.
Bob, and you told me at one point you had offered to send U.S. troops into Mexico to combat drug trafficking there. Is that something you have spoken to her about?
I think she's a terrific person. I would say every single time I talk to her, I offered to send troops.
And she's just not willing?
She's concerned. She's a little afraid. The cartels are running Mexico, whether you like it or not.
So today, we're not just talking about a cartel boss being taken down. We got to talk about politics, pressure, and power moving behind the scenes. Because before the raid ever happened, nearly 100 cartel figures were quietly handed over to the United States, including El Mencho's own brother. Trump labeled these groups terrorists. Mexico resisted U.S. troops crossing the border. And then suddenly, one of the most wanted men in the world is killed, and the country erupts. So the real question is this: did Mexico pull the trigger on the operation alone? Or was this the result of a much bigger geopolitical play? This might be the first kind of video we do of this kind, so I did my best to do extensive research along the journey. But before we go over this one, I want you guys to remember, I won't give you no angle. I just give you the story. So with that being said, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. We'll jump right to it. Now before we go any further and talk about El Mencho, we gotta understand something. Mexico is not the United States. It's a separate country with its own army, its own president, and its own rules. So when Donald Trump talks about sending U.S. troops across the border, that ain't just politics. That's sovereignty. And for Mexico, letting another country military operate on their soil could look like losing control of their own war. Now look,
Now you got to think about it, right? What if Russia offered to give troops to the United States? Right? How would Trump feel? What if Mexico offered to give troops so the United States could fight a war on their own land? How would Trump feel? So it makes sense.
No, Mexico isn't a part of the United States. The reality is the two countries are tied together by money, security, and one long border that never sleeps. And for months, pressure had been building behind closed doors. Donald Trump wasn't just talking about immigration. He was calling cartel terrorists, offering a $15 million reward for El Mencho, and pushing Mexico to go harder than ever before. But Mexico's president made one thing clear: no U.S. troops crossing the border. So instead of boots on the ground, a different kind of partnership started taking shape. One built on intelligence, trade leverage, and quiet extraditions that most people never.
Yo, is it just me or y'all see his eyes? What's that about?
Instead of boots on the ground, a different kind of partnership started taking shape. One built on intelligence, trade leverage, and quiet extraditions that most people.
I know I'm not the only one that see that, y'all. I don't think the video glitched.
So instead of boots on the ground, a different kind of partnership started taking shape. One built on intelligence, trade leverage, and quiet extraditions that most people never even heard about.
About 97% of the drugs coming in by water, and we are going to start now hitting land with regard to the cartels. The cartels are running Mexico. It's very, very sad to watch and see what's happened to that country, but the cartels are running, and they're killing 250, 300,000 people in our country every single year. The drugs, it's horrible. It's devastated families. You know, you lose a child or a parent. I mean, parents are dying too with drugs. So we've done a really good job. We're knocking it down. The numbers are really getting to be, they're always going to be too high if you have one person, but they're going down just like the border. The border was a total mess for years. I did it the first time very quickly, and this time I did it even better because this was a bigger mess. This was a border like no other probably in the history of the world. There's never been a border like that when anybody could just walk into your country.
Now fam, months before the raid in Jalisco, the first cracks in the cartel's armor were already showing. In a move that many people didn't even notice at the time, Mexico quietly handed over 92 suspected cartel figures to the United States to stand trial.
Now, that's the thing, right? If they was able to do that, that tells us that they been have knowledge of where these people were, where they were operating, because how else would they be able to get 37 cartel members that are not just little cartel members? These are prominent people. So how are y'all able to get these guys so easily and so fast like that? Or is it that they're actually using special forces from the United States that they're not telling us about? And they're just making it seem like they're not publicly, but privately that's really what's going on. Who knows?
Small players neither. High-level traffickers, security commanders, and even Antonio Cervantes, the brother of El Mencho himself. For years, extradition requests sat untouched. But once cartels were labeled foreign terrorist organizations, the pressure changed everything. To some observers, this wasn't just cooperation. It was Mexico sending a message. The era of protecting cartel power behind politics might finally be coming to an end.
7 members of Mexican drug cartels are now in the United States as the Trump administration puts pressure on governments to crack down on criminal networks it says are smuggling drugs across the border. Mexican authorities handed over important figures from the most infamous cartels who all have pending cases here in the U.S. Valeria Leon is covering the story from Mexico City.
On the first anniversary of President Trump's second term, Mexico announced the transfer of 37 inmates to the United States.
Now, listen, y'all pay attention, right? It's no coincidence, like she just said, on Trump's second anniversary, right? What's a coincidence? On his second anniversary date, they got 37 prominent cartel members extradited back to the U.S.
This is the third operation of its kind in just 1 year, something unprecedented in the relationship between the two countries. In total, Mexico has now sent 92 high-risk criminals across the border. This latest transfer began at El Altiplano, one of Mexico's highest security prisons. 7 military aircraft flew the inmates into U.S. territory, sending them to 6 cities: San Diego, San Antonio, Washington, D.C., Houston, New York, and Pennsylvania. According to a post on X by Mexico's Secretary of Public Security, Omar Garcia Harfuch, these 37 inmates were operators within major criminal organizations and were considered a real threat to national security. The government emphasized that the operation respected Mexico's sovereignty and was carried out under the agreement that death penalty would not be considered. The request for their transfer came from the U.S. Department of Justice, but this wasn't the first time. Back in August, Mexico sent another 26 inmates to the U.S., a group that included figures like Juan Carlos Felix, the son-in-law of Sinaloa cartel co-founder Ismael El Mayo Zambada, and Servando Gómez Latuta, a well-known leader of Los Caballeros Templarios. That August operation had been preceded by the first transfer, carried out early in February, when Mexico handed over Rafael Caro Quintero, one of the most wanted fugitives in the United States since 1985, after the kidnapping and murder of DEA agent Kiki Camarena. And here's the key point. None of these 3 historic transfers were formal extraditions. Mexico insists they're not extraditions at all, but rather transfers carried out.
Y'all hear that? It's not extradition, it's transfers. See, one thing about this world, period, because clearly not just the United States, but when they want something done, they know how to bend the rules. They're going to say that this is not extradition. Whenever you take somebody from one country to the next, that's extradition. It's extraditing. They said no, it's transfers. Wow.
Under a cooperation framework between both countries. Valeria Leon, CNN, Mexico City.
And among those transferred was Maria del Rosario Navarro Sanchez, the first Mexican citizen to face charges in the U.S. for providing support to a terrorist organization. She's accused of conspiring with a cartel.
Now,
see, now that's how they did that. That's how they was able to take her down, because once they were labeled a foreign terrorist group, what happens is now there's certain laws that's put in place for them as terrorists that now they can act on getting whoever they want as long as they considered foreign terrorists.
Trump asked, Mexico was holding up their word, but it was one person they wanted, and they put a $15 million bounty on his head to get him. The guy who technically replaced El Chapo once he went down. 2 different organizations, but one rose to the top, El Mencho. Fast forward to February 2026. Months of pressure from the United States. Dozens of cartel figures already extradited. And intelligence tightened around one of the most hunted men alive. Mexican special forces moved towards a residence hidden inside Jalisco. Authorities say the breakthrough came after information linked to a woman close to the cartel boss helped narrow his location down. When soldiers surrounded the property, officials say El Mencho was inside, moving cautiously, unaware that the circle around him had already closed. Photos released from inside the residence show a quiet setting, but outside, heavily armed units were preparing for a confrontation. Years in the making, there was no sirens, no public warnings. Mexican forces breached the location, taking him into custody after a tense operation that officials described as high risk from the start. For a brief moment, it looked like one of the most powerful cartel leaders in modern history had finally been captured alive. But the operation didn't end there. During transport, chaos erupted. Gunfire broke out, and according to early reports, El Mencho was shot and killed during the confrontation involving special agents on the ground. Details remain intense and controversial, but what happened next was in shockwaves across the country. As the smoke cleared.
Now, isn't that crazy, right? It's always a female involved somehow, some way. But for y'all there's been a lot of rumors about how he was caught. They're saying that the girl set him up, purposely gave his whereabouts out. But according to other articles, that's not how it went. What happened was they was tracking her. And when they was tracking her, they traced her movements back to that rural area that he was at. And that's how they got his information and his whereabouts, because that's his mistress or spouse, whatever she is to him. But it's always a female. And they're saying that she had no idea. And this is the part that the United States offered to the Mexican military, allegedly. So they're saying that it was American Special Forces who gave this intelligence. This was their part. Gave this intelligence to the Mexican military, and they acted on the information. And that's how they were able to get El Mencho.
One of the agents involved appeared on camera, showing the cause of the operation and the violence that unfolded behind the scenes. A moment that revealed just how dangerous this mission had become, even for the forces carrying it out, showing a bullet in his chin. Within hours of the news spreading, retaliation hit fast. Buses burned, highways blocked, entire city lit up in flames as cartel cells react to the loss of their leaders, even showing off their fleet of military cars and armor.
Now, also when it comes to this footage, because I know a lot of people have been seeing this all over Twitter and other social media platforms, you got to watch out for what you see and what you determine is real or fake and what's old and what's new. A lot of these things, there was a lot of false narratives being pushed along with this stuff that's been going on. And it's also a lot of old videos that was being pushed as new videos that they're saying is in regards to this whole capture of El Mencho. But that's not the case. All the videos aren't current, and a lot of them are old as well. So, you know, you got to decipher what's real and what's not.
Señor Mencho. Pura gente, señor Mencho. Pura gente, señor Mencho. Pura gente, señor Mencho. Señor Mencho. Pura gente, señor Mencho. Pura gente, señor Mencho. Puro grupo Luis. Pura gente, señor Mencho. Pura gente, señor Mencho. Pura gente, grupo Luis. ¡Pura gente del señor Mencho! ¡Pura gente! ¡Pura el señor de los gallos! ¡Arriba, señor Mencho! ¡Pura gente del señor Mencho! ¡Arriba, señor Mencho!
All right, y'all. So that was pretty much it, man. Y'all get the gist of what I'm trying to say. I'm just bringing to y'all attention that they're saying that his capture was a little more than what we're being told publicly. And they're saying that he had a little more information on what's going on when it comes to the partnership between Mexico and America. And when it comes to the drugs being trafficked in and out of Mexico to the United States and all over the world. And this is why they wanted him deceased rather than him go through the due process of being taken to jail and a trial and so forth and so forth. To them, he was more valuable unalive than he was alive, just to assure that he doesn't speak on anything he knows. Now they're saying that he also had some type of laptop of some sort. Basically a lot of things in his possession. That they didn't want to get out there, and they wanted to make sure that they got before anybody else in the world did. So y'all jump in the comments, let me know what y'all think about this. This is another angle towards this whole El Mencho stuff that's going on. A lot of people just believe it's about drugs and capturing one of the most brutal narco bosses there is. But they're saying that there's more to the story, and there's more revealing that's probably to come in the future. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Y'all jump in the comments, let me know what y'all think about this. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell so you're notified every time we drop new content. And remember, as long as you keep on watching, I'm going to keep on dropping. I'm out.